Okay, so thank you everybody for joining. My name is Brad Young, and we're going to be talking today about how to make your SIM and log analysis platform sing using user activity logs. What we're going to be covering today, I'm going to take a quick 2 or 3 minutes to give you some background about what is Observit. And then right after that, we're going to be diving in and understanding what is this thing, user activity logs or user activity monitoring. How is it different than the typical auditing and monitoring log capture process that we're familiar with today. And we'll take about 15 minutes to understand user activity monitoring plugs very cleanly and very effectively into SIM platforms in order to get the most out of your SIM correlation and SIM reporting environments. After we finish that, we'll take a couple minutes for a formal Q&A session. And I do want to point out that in the GoToWebinar panel, there is an area for typing in questions. So if you do have questions, feel free to type them in. Wherever possible, we'll take the questions during the course of the webinar, and where not, we'll attend to the questions at the end of the session in a formal Q&A portion. So thank you for joining again, and I'll repeat, my name is Brad Young, and here we go. So talking a bit about Observit. What is Observit? Observit is software that acts like a security camera on your servers. That is the product that we provide. It's a software product that generates user activity logs, working like a security camera on your server. It does that by generating a video recording of all user activity and by analyzing that video activity in order to generate textual audit logs for every application, even for apps that have no internal logging. That's the idea of what Observit is, and over the course of the next 45 minutes you'll understand that in a lot more depth, but that gets the idea of what Observit is about and what Observit is for. Who is using Observit? We have thousands of global enterprises who rely on Observit for their security and compliance auditing environments. Our customers typically cover industry segments or business segments in which there is a high level of sensitive data and a high level of regulatory compliance requirements. And that includes, of course, financial, manufacturing, healthcare, and telecommunications, and utilities, for example. Now, what are these customers using Observit for? There's 3 key reasons why Observit is used by these customers. And they are remote vendor monitoring. Remote vendor monitoring is about just plain being able to know what third-party vendors are doing when they access our systems. Compliance and security accountability is the second reason customers are using our product, and that's because many of the various security regulations kind of all boil down to one fundamental question: can you know and can you demonstrate who did what on your systems? And Observit answers that specific need. And the third purpose that people are using Observit is for root cause analysis, being able to drill down and document exactly what is taking place on every server in order to drill down and find where problems are coming from. So those are the business challenges that Observit is meant to address. Okay, so that was your real quick 3-minute overview about who is Observit and what is Observit about and the background of where, so you can understand a little bit about where we are coming from, where it is that I'm coming from. Now let's dive down and understand this thing called user activity monitoring. Why is this a solution or an issue that really is of importance and is really worth taking into account? And I'd like to do so, to start off in doing so, by using an analogy, if I may. Let's consider for a minute a bank. A bank has many different environments. 2 of those includes branch offices and computer servers, or your server farm. And in many ways they're very similar. They both hold a lot of money. They both have some means of access control as well. Okay, and we all know exactly what that looks like, and it might look a little bit different. In the branch office, it looks like big tough guys wearing blue suits, and on our computer servers it looks, well, we know what access control looks like on our computer servers as well, but in the end of the day, those are all about access control, making sure we control who gets into the branch office or who gets into the computer servers. So it's kind of exactly the same in many ways. But here is where the analogy breaks down, because in addition to the access control at the branch office, they also have security cameras. Whereas on the computer servers, they don't. It's just that simple. Despite the fact that they have access control to control who gets into the branch office, they also want security cameras to be able to film what happens once people get in. For some reason on the computer servers, that capability does not quite exist. And what that means, and what that boils down to, is that companies are investing a lot of resources into deploying access control, but once users gain access, privileged users or users that need to gain access, once those users gain access, there's very little knowledge of who they are or what they do. Okay, and this is despite the fact that a vast majority of data breaches involve privileged user credentials, involved user credentials for users who need to have access. Okay, so that kind of highlights kind of the absurdity of the situation, and that's helps us drill down to understand why it makes sense to be able to know a little bit more about what users are doing. So you might take a step back and say, wait a minute, Brad, I don't have that specific problem because in addition to my access control, I have SIM deployed, and I use my SIM in order to tell me what users do, who is accessing my systems, and what they did. Well, indeed, having a SIM deployed is fantastic, but the picture isn't quite as rosy as you think. Why do I say that? Well, first of all, just the evidence clearly points to it, and I'm referring first of all to the 2001 Data Breach Investigations Report by Verizon Business and the U.S. Secret Service and the Dutch High-Tech Anti-Crime Division, which pointed out that less than 1% of data breaches are discovered via log analysis. That's a shocking statistic. Less than 1% of data breaches are discovered via log analysis, a ridiculously low number. What that's pointing to is the fact that despite the fact that we got log analysis platforms and SIM platforms deployed, we're not effectively using it for the purpose of security monitoring and security detection. Okay? Which of course begs the question immediately, why is that? Well, why is that? I want to emphasize this very clearly. The problem is not in the SIM products themselves. The SIM products are great, but the problem is that for the most part, we are forcing SIM to rely on system logs, and system logs simply don't tell the right story. Consider your typical system security log. What are you going to get? You're going to get either thousands and thousands of log entries with very detailed, technical, ugly debug style logs that don't actually say what the user actually did, or you'll get no logs whatsoever. It's feast or famine, so to speak. You either get tons of data that really doesn't tell what the user did, or you get no data whatsoever. That's the problem with system logs today, with security logs today. They're not telling the right story. And this problem exists. It exists for almost all of the most commonly used applications. Consider if you're using Microsoft Excel to edit a financial spreadsheet, or if you're using, you're opening up an RDP session into a remote machine, or if you are editing a configuration file in VI or in Notepad, or if you're running SQL queries in Toad. Running any of those type of applications, can you really know what it is that you did? If you did it on your own computer, would you be able to backtrack and know what you did? Clearly not, and the problem is because of the system logs that they create. So we can't blame the SIM if we're feeding our SIM only system debug logs. And this is exactly where Observit is stepping in. And basically what we're trying to say is, wouldn't it be great, or wouldn't we rather, instead of getting ugly, detailed, technical debug logs, wouldn't it be great if we just had a clear-cut indication that the user, in this particular example, the user clicked the directory browsing checkbox in this dialog box? That very straightforward says, what did the user do? If you want to know what the user did, I can see, hey, the user clicked the directory browsing checkbox. That is a much more clear story than using the detailed system logs. Okay? So that's what Observit is about, and now let's understand one level deeper now exactly how it is that the product works, and take a look at the live demo. what is the situation today? We're very clear what the situation today is, that you have users accessing corporate servers or corporate desktops. Very often they're logging in with a generic user ID, such as administrator. And at the same time, we got security officers wondering who's doing what on our network. Well, Observe It steps in and changes things around a bit with 3 key features. The first of this is video capture. It simply captures a recording of everything that that user is doing, captures it as if we're looking over the user's shoulder and videotaping the screen of everything that he's doing during that session. Okay. The second of the 3 key features is video content analysis. Observe It generates a list of every single application, file, URL accessed, or resource affected within that session, creating a detailed textual summary of what the user did. Okay. And the third piece of what Observe It did is, while the user is doing that, it also eliminates any questions about shared account users. So if the user logged on as administrator, Observe It goes in and determines that that user was actually, in this case, Alex. So now what Observe It has captured with these 3 pieces of information is Observe It now knows that the person that was doing the session was Alex. We have a video recording of everything that he did, and we have a detailed textual analysis of what happened within that session. Those 3 pieces of information, the user identification, the video recording, and the textual summary of what the user did, are all collected into a audit log database or SIM log collection that can then be delivered over to the security officer to answer in the most direct means possible. He wanted to know who was doing what. Well, now he knows who did what. It's very straightforward. Okay, that is what the essential concept of the product is about, and it's at this point that I'd like to dive in and take a first look at a live demo and seeing what auditing user activity looks like within the Observe It platform. After that, I remind you, we'll come back out and we'll see how that user activity log is made effective within a SIM, within many different SIM platforms. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start out in the Observe It main screen. And in this environment, we're starting off in the server diary. And what is a server diary? Server diary is essentially a list of every user session that took place on a particular server. In this particular case, I'm looking at a server called OIT hosted demo-s. So I see a list of every session that took place, sorted by date and by time. And for each session, I can see a lot of detailed information. So for example, I can see here that on the 8th of February at 2:51 p.m., there was a session that was logged in by the user used the logged in credentials administrator. The actual person who logged in was somebody named Brad, and I see the server he logged into it. I see the client machine that he logged in from. And in addition to that, now I have the ability to launch a video replay. So I can go ahead and click that icon, launch video replay, and it's at this point that I now have the ability to actually see everything that the user did within that session. It's as if I'm looking over his shoulder and seeing everything that he did. I see him launching, in this case, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. I see him interacting with that user interface. I see him drilling down within the left side of that directory tree to drill down within the SQL Server Management Studio. I see him opening up dialog boxes. Here he's going into the properties window, and now I see him editing the database, the master database file, the master database properties. Again, I get a video replay of exactly everything that the user did within that session. So that's already a tremendous benefit or tremendous capability that I now have for the purpose of auditing exactly what the user did within that session, and it's quite satisfactory in and of itself. However, I doubt that anybody's going to want to sit back and watch a video replay and from start to end of every single user session that takes place on our corporate servers. It's not exactly my idea of an enjoyable full-featured movie. So, you know, unless you want to pull up a bowl of popcorn and watch the whole movie, Observe It comes in and provides greater depth of knowledge and greater depth of understanding of what happened within those sessions. Okay, so let's take a look at what that means. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a look at this particular session that we were just looking at, and I'm going to click on this plus icon here and what that's going to do is that's going to expand this session to show me a detailed list of every action that took place within that session. So now I can see, once again, that Brad had a session where he logged on as an administrator on the 8th of February at 2:51 p.m. And within that session, I can now see, even without launching the video replay, I can see exactly what the user did. He came in, he logged in, he went to Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio to edit the master database properties. He then went on to the control panel, in which he moved on to the network connections to change the TCP/IP properties. And then after that, he went to the driver's etc directory and he opened the host file in Notepad. And then after that, he logged off. I see an exact summary of everything that he did that I can just scan by eye in just a brief moment and understand exactly what the user did with that session, without the need to piece things back together and without the need to see a video replay. Now, beyond this, what I can now do is, if there's anything within this summary that I have that catches my eye that I want to investigate further, I can easily do that by launching the video replay at that exact moment in time. So, for example, hey, wait a minute, why is Brad editing the host file in Notepad? That has the security implications, and Brad has no reason to be editing a host file. He shouldn't be doing that. I might want to investigate that. I'm going to go ahead and click the video replay at that exact moment in time. And here we see that the video replay launches at that exact moment in time. I see the time bar has jumped right to that location. And here I see Brad editing that file in Notepad. I can now see everything that he did. I see him entering a line within that within the host file. I see him going to the user interface, to the menu, to do file save and file exit. I've now seen everything that Brad did within that session, and there's absolutely no doubt of what Brad did. Not only do I know that he edited the host file in Notepad, I also know exactly what he did within that file. Okay. So far, what we've seen is what this auditing capability is about and what it provides for Windows sessions. I want to point out that this is equally available, and in fact also in more depth available for us for sessions that take place in Linux and Unix sessions as well. So for example, I'm going to switch over now to a different server. I've selected a different server to drill down into, and this happens to be a Linux server. And again, we have the same concept, the exact same auditing platform, same type of integrated view, where for this Linux session, again, see on the 8th of March, I see that that person named Brad, who apparently is causing lots of problems, had a session that started at 3:29 p.m. And once again, I have that video replay, and once again, I get that over-the-shoulder capability of seeing exactly what the user did. So I can see here that the user ran ls, and then ran pwd, and then ran id, and then ran a cat command, and then used sudo to run some script called innocent script. Fantastic. Ran 5 commands, no problem, and I see exactly what the user did. I get an exact replication of all the TTY screen I/O. However, if I go back to the Observer console and I drill down into that session to understand what took place within that session, this is where Observer really provides a great level of detail, is that in addition to the screen I/O, I get a lot more internal data of what happened within that session underneath the hood as well. So for example, in that session, we saw that the user typed 5 different commands, but the number of commands that appear here is much larger. Where did these come from? Well, let's find out. Like, for example, we see here an RM command. We didn't see on the screen anybody running RM. If I drill down even further, I can see that the actual command was rm-rf export home John finance. Somebody deleted the entire finance directory and all the contents of that finance directory within John's home directory. Again, drilling down, I can actually even see the unlink command, the unlink system call that took place by that RM command, and I can see the actual files that were deleted, even though those file names were never explicitly typed on the command line, and not even were explicitly typed within the script file as well. Okay, what caused that RM command to run? Where did that run? Well, I can launch the video replay at that exact moment in time, and what Observe It will do is take me again to that exact moment in time, and now again I see exactly when that happened, and now I know, that RM command took place within the script called innocent script, which in the end apparently was not so innocent after all. So what Observe It is doing is taking us into a great level of depth of understanding what's taking place underneath the hood within each Unix session, and not just giving us an audit of the actual screen I/O, which is very important, because when hackers or malicious users are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, they know enough to put it within a script. They're not simply typing it within TTY I/O. Okay. Now, we've really just scratched the surface in terms of the functionality that Observe It provides. There's a lot greater set of functions that Observe It allows you to take advantage of, which includes searching and generating reports, and a lot of different configuration policy rules for determining what is recorded and what is not recorded. And I definitely do want to encourage you to explore that functionality at your leisure. But at this particular moment, I want to pull out, because I wanted to, at this point, just get you a feel for what is this idea of user activity logs, and now we'll drill down further to understand how can we make use of that within a SIM platform. So if I may, let's now move on and understand how we can make your SIM sing using user activity logs. And so what I want to look at is what are the benefits of adding user activity logs to your SIM, what it looks like, and how the integration works. We'll cover all three of those aspects. Okay, so I've shown you a lot of great functionality that Observe It provides, and you might take a step back and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I like my SIM tool. Why are you showing me some other auditing environment? I like my SIM tool. I want to use my SIM tool. I can't emphasize this enough that so do we. We love your SIM tool, in fact. Okay, and what Observe It does, what we've seen so far, is the fact that Observe It captures a lot of really rich descriptive data about what users have done, and then also provides a web console in order to view that data. And what you can easily do with Observe It is use Observe It for capturing that user activity, but then present it within your SIM platform. Okay. For example, if I may, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what that looks like, and then we'll go ahead and see it live. Okay. For example, here we are seeing the Observe It video and text log information within CA's UARM platform, where again you get that same depth of richness of data, the lists of every application that was run, timeline view, dashboarding breakdowns by users and servers, and a listing of each action and the video replay straight from within that dashboard. Okay, that's what it looks like within CA's UIRM. Similarly in ArcSight. In ArcSight, you have the ability to to collect that data into ArcSight, generate reports based on that, build correlations on top of that, and then launch the video replay. It's just from the right mouse context menu to drill down to launch the video replay, and again, see the video replay straight from there. Third example that I'll point out is that you can see this within Splunk, and actually Splunk is what we're going to be taking a look at in a live demo in just about 2 minutes or less even. And the fourth example that I want to point out is showing Observe It data within RSA's Envision platform. Okay, those are 4 examples of integrations that are available today. Observe It can integrate, however, with any SIM platform. The 4 that I'm pointing out right now are 4 examples or 4 platforms in which the data connectors are already built in and available, but the open architecture of the way Observe It database is built allows for adding the user activity logs from Observe It into any SIM platform. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like, that user activity log data, this time within Splunk. Okay, so I'm using the Splunk SIM platform right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by going to a dashboard view. And I'm going to search. Well, I'll start off by doing a search for everything. So do a dashboard breakdown that's going to show me everything that is collected from the Observe It user activity logs straight from within Splunk. So what I'm seeing here now are various pie chart breakdowns broken down by application name, what applications were users using. Broken down by server name, what was the servers that users were logging onto. The username, the actual user who was logging into those servers as well, or any type of breakdown that you might want. You can build those type of dashboards. So here, for example, I'm using the default Splunk functionality for dashboarding and for drilling down. And for example, I can see here, well, here 2.9% of the application activity was within Microsoft Management Console. I'm going to click on that to drill down to see what's happening. And again, I get very detailed breakdowns, all using Splunk's built-in dashboarding capabilities. And here I see, for example, timeline view of all the user sessions in which Microsoft Management Console was used. And as I scroll down, I can get a detailed listing of every user session and the actions within that user session in which Microsoft Management Console was taking place. So I can see that there was a user named Sean who was running Microsoft Management Console, and then a user named Amir was launching Microsoft Management Console. And if there's anything that I want to drill down even further and understand, once again, I can just go ahead and click that video icon, or this video link, I should say in this case. And what that will do is launch the video replay, and of course, again, that's going to launch that at the exact moment of time that I'm interested in. So here I am. I'm able to see. I'm going to jump back over for a minute over to see what we just clicked on. We saw that the user named Sean was running Microsoft Management Console. He was doing the local security settings, and when we go to the video replay, that's indeed what we see here. I'm not sure if you can see the resolution on your screen right now, but indeed what's happening right there is we can see the user running Microsoft Management Console, local security settings, and continuing the replay. We see everything that he's doing, then going to the desktop, and we see all of that contextual information from that exact moment in time. Okay, and of course I have the capability. This is now, we're very natively sitting within Splunk right now, so I can do any type of drill down or cutting down. I can drill down further and filter based on just what is Shauna doing, within Microsoft Management Console or globally across everything. However I want to do my searching within Splunk, I have that level of granularity available to me everywhere. So here we see a timeline view of all of Sean's sessions across my entire network since the beginning of time. Okay, so that gives you a feel of how you can get that same level of information, that great granular information about what you're doing, not only within Observe It's platform, but also within any SIEM environment. Let's understand that a little bit more in depth of what that means to us. Okay, so first of all, what we just saw was seeing that Observe It data, that user activity data, I should say, within Splunk. What you can do is you can take that even further by beefing up your existing logs within your SIEM platform. Okay, many times you might have a situation where you already have built-in correlations and built-in log analysis functionality defined within your SIEM platform, but in some cases it might not be detailed enough. It might not be clear exactly what happened just based on that information. So if you have system log data that's being displayed within your SIEM platforms, for example, OS system log reports that have lists of events, or database system log reports that have lists of events, or various types of dashboards within your SIEM, you can link that based on a simple combination of timestamp per user and machine to the video replay. So not only do you have access to the user activity logs per se, but you can link easily those user activity logs to any other logs that you have collected within your SIEM platform. And that is a tremendous benefit. That's a tremendous benefit, and let's talk about for a minute why and where that is a tremendous benefit. What it does for us, it allows us to drastically reduce security compliance and security auditing costs. And that savings occurs in a number of environments, okay? And I'm sure you're all aware, in fact, that the issue of compliance certainly is complex, and in fact, the problem of compliance is much more than just getting compliant. In many cases, getting compliant is just the easy first step of compliance. Staying compliant is equally hard or harder, okay? And let's understand how integrating these user activity logs into your SIM platform reduces your security and compliance costs. Well, first of all, in terms of getting compliant, it's really quite straightforward. Observit is going to audit for you all applications. We're generating logs for everything that users do, no matter what application that they are. Doesn't matter whether those apps have their own internal logging. Observit generates logs for those applications. Okay? Observit also captures every user action, including video replay. So we're generating those logs, just textual logs and video logs that shows what the user is doing within the applications and within the user session in general. So we're really showing holistically everything that the user has done. And this is occurring and taking place for all platforms, whether it's Windows systems, Linux systems, or Unix systems. All of that information is available within one single auditing platform. And this is true whether it's physical servers or virtual machines, whether it's cloud applications that are being used, whether it's users accessing via remote, or whether it's direct console access. All of these types of user access and user sessions across any system are all being monitored. And those three pieces together, all applications, all actions, and all platforms together allow you to get compliant. But then is where it gets really complicated. How do I stay compliant? Well, staying compliant, we all know that, well, once you've got your correlations and your audit reports built up, then every single time that something, that an auditor comes in and requests further drill down and further information, sends us back to the drawing board to have our research team or have ourselves try to drill down further to re-explore what exactly happened, what the auditor wants to know. So by having Observit video replay correlated with within all of your logs, whenever an auditor wants to investigate further, drill down further, you have on-the-spot response to show a video replay of what the user did immediately, straight from within that audit review. In addition, Observit allows you to stop the recorrelation cycle. Okay. Today, anytime there is a system change, that generates the need for having massive realignment of SIM correlation rules. If you upgrade some software platform, let's say your CRM platform that collects credit card data, and so for PCI auditing, anything that collects credit card data needs to be audited. Well, if your CRM application is upgraded, goes from version 2.1 to 2.11, just a minor upgrade, now you've got to go back and re-audit that entire application to prove that it is still fully compliant. Well, Observit eliminates that crazy requirement or that crazy need. Why? Because we are auditing everything from external to the application. So we don't need to wonder, well, does this new module that was added to my CRM, does that also generate logs like I need it? Doesn't matter, because Observit is going to capture that audit logs external to the application. And lastly, of course, Observit's video replay establishes absolute truth about what the user did, which gives you full non-repudiation. There's no doubt surrounding the conclusiveness of what your audit information is. Okay, so we talked about we've seen what it looks like in a live demo. We've talked about what the benefits are. Let's take another 5 minutes to drill down and understand how this works. The architecture in the way that a SIM can be integrated into, Observit can be integrated into your SIM platform, and then at that point we'll open up for Q&A. So, for starters, let's just understand the Observit architecture. Regardless of a SIM, let's put aside SIM for just a minute, and I'll describe how Observit works, and then from there we'll understand in more depth exactly how that Observit then is integrated into your SIM. Okay. The way that Observit works is that It's a software agent that is deployed on any machine, whether it be a desktop machine or a server, and that server can be Windows servers, Linux servers, Unix servers, Citrix gateway servers, virtual machines, whatever the case might be. That software agent is deployed on that server. That agent comes to life, wakes up whenever a user is active in a session, and it collects the information, the video replay and the textual audit logs, delivers it to the observability management server. The management server processes that data centrally and stores that data in a database server. Okay? And it is via that management server that you have the ability to access that information via the Observit web console, which is fine. And that's what we saw at the beginning of this webinar, where we saw the Observit web console and what it's like to access the data from within Observit. But in addition, Observit, the database information can also be accessed from any external SIM or network management tool, I should point out. Okay, so that is what the Observit architecture is like. So now let's understand exactly how this integration works. Okay, so now we're going to drill down and understand a little bit more in depth the integration between the Observit database and the SIM platform. Now, I want to explain, first of all, for starters, that the Observit database, as you've understood probably so far, consists of two main pieces of data or types of data: the textual metadata database and the video replay. And so what I'm going to talk about for starters is the metadata database. And essentially, the way that this integration works is a very standards-based integration. You can the database is open and accessible via very simple direct access or ODBC connector, in which you pull into the database to collect information, to collect the metadata, the textual metadata that then is stored within your SIM database. And that polling actually can occur in one of two ways. You can do it via SQL integration, in which you have a poller polling every X seconds or X minutes, even however you want to configure it. Typically, it would be every 5 or 10 seconds if you want it to be very close tabs on everything that the user is doing. If you want a more general audit, you might want to expand that timing. It's all up to you. That polling is pinging against or hitting the database, and the query results is sent back, mapped into fields and stored in the SIM database. That's straightforward, very simple. That's one of two options. The second option would be to have Observit, instead of having the access go directly via a SQL database, to have it go via a real-time metadata log file. If instead you want to have your SIM poller to access the data, just a plain comma delimited metadata log file, that collecting or data collector architecture works as well. And once again, it's the very exact same type of concept, where that data is pulled, the content results are then mapped via field mapper and stored into a SIM database. Okay, and that is how the textual data, the textual metadata, is stored in the SIM, is accessed into the SIM. I want to point out that that metadata that is captured includes URLs for the video replay. So let's understand what happens with the video replay. Now, unlike the metadata log, the video replay data is maintained within Observit, not delivered in stored with replicated within the SIM. A, because there's really no need to replicate the full video data set, and B, because it's more than just the data there. There's also the browser-based functionality wrapper for actually showing the video replay. There's no custom software that's needed. It's straight HTML-based, browser-based access, and that wrapper comes along. It's a URL access to access that video replay. That URL, I should point out, is single sign-on, but with no passwords being transferred. It's a token-based authentication with time to live limits. Okay. That video replay, by the way, I just want to point out that that architecture for accessing the OIT, for accessing the Observit database for integration, is true for any size of deployment, including if you have a federated database in which you have a multi-location network in which you might want to have data collectors existing on multiple locations geographically or logically. It integrates via a single point of contact that serves as a federated location for logging in or for accessing that data. A few last points that I want to point out, and that is that so far we've been talking about SIEM platforms, and I do want to make it clear that from a network management perspective, it's very much the same concept. Okay, so we have many customers who are using the Observit intelligent data, the user activity logs that Observit is generating, and using the same type of architecture concept that we've just described to integrate that data into an alerting platform in order to understand exactly, in order to generate system alerts or trigger actions based specifically on user activity triggers. Okay, so network management, just like SIEM, can benefit from this user activity log information. Okay, so it's at this point that I think what I'd like to do is conclude the main portion of this webinar and invite you to, if you have any questions so far, please feel free to enter them in the question section of the GoToWebinar panel. In the meantime, I will point out that if there are anything that you didn't get a chance to explore within this webinar and you do want to follow up afterwards, you can definitely feel free to ping me. My email is here on the screen, brad@observit.com. Feel free to ping me offline on email, and I'll be glad to assist you further, so feel free to contact me. And that includes if you'd like to get a hold of further information of what was presented here. And in addition, the actual video replay of this session will be made available on our website. By next week, you'll be able to watch a replay of this entire webinar. So. Once again, I encourage you to ask any questions that you might have. I see that there are a number of questions that have come in. So I'll start approaching your questions that you may have. Okay, and the first question is why not add the database? Well, excuse me, I'm having trouble reading this. Why not add the database video? Why not deliver the video as, I'm interpreting the question. I hope I understand what you're saying. Why not deliver the video as part of the what is delivered to the SIEM? I believe that's what you're asking. If that was indeed your question, I hope so. If not, feel free to clarify it further. And let me explain once again. Let me drop back to the architecture slide that we were describing here. Okay. The video replay, the database of videos, there's really no need to duplicate or to replicate that entire data set once again within your SIEM platform. All of that data remains active and accessible via straightforward URL, HTTP-based URL that URL exists and is available or appears within the actual textual metadata, and so you can link straight from there. There's really no need to replicate that data because it's just extra network traffic and extra duplication that has really no benefit from duplicating. So I hope that answered your question. Next question that's coming on is what should be the capacity planning approach? Okay, yeah, okay. So let me approach that just in general. In terms of capacity planning, the overhead of Observit is surprisingly and extremely low. Okay, we've been talking, and I want to point this out, we've been talking so far a whole lot about video replay However, the video that is available is not actual AVI style video with its very heavy, very large file size implications and its heavy resource implications as well. We aren't actually capturing true live video of what's happening. Instead, we have a patented video generation technology that is essentially based on a series of screenshots and deltas of screenshots during each user activity. So the actual format is a very compressed visual format that is not video, and B, we're only capturing user activity when there is a user session open and when that user is active. When no user session is open, there's absolutely nothing going on. When a user session is open, observe it, the agent comes to life and it's recording, but it will idle out, it'll pause whenever the user pauses. So if the user opens up a session, runs a couple of commands, observe it is recording that, and then the user goes and makes a cup of coffee or sits and stares at a screen for a while, observe it is not recording anything there. So from a capacity planning requirement, the overhead is outrageously low. To give you a feel for, and from a quantitative approach, a typical or average customer environment in which there are 1,000 servers being monitored with 500 users accessing those servers generates approximately 500 to 600 gigabytes of data over an entire year. So that's just a little more than half a terabyte of data over an entire year for a 1,000 server enterprise environment. So your capacity, your database requirements are extremely low. Okay. A bunch of great questions coming in. Let me make sure I follow up here. What about activity that's happening within PowerShell or CMD commands? Can I search or report on them? Okay. Okay. So yeah, so that's a great question. Yes, indeed. So the user. Anything that the user is doing within what Observe It is capturing is everything that the user is doing within that screen, and we're capturing all the on-screen activity. So indeed, you would be able to capture that information via visual replay. Observe It is not, at least currently, doing keyboard tracing. So it's not from a textual input perspective that we're capturing it, but we're capturing from the what is occurring within the screen. So so yes, that is capturable and auditable. However, not from a keyboard keystroke capturing perspective. Yeah, and a follow-up question is if the user is dragging the window out of view. Yeah, so if the user is dragging the window out of view, well, there what you might, if that is an additional concern of what you want to have, so Observe It still does capture the actual underlying commands that were run within, for example, a shell environment. So still, all of the user commands that are run are still captured within that shell environment. So if a person is logging on via, for example, a telnet window or an SSH window, those user actions are still captured, and you still have that drilled down to the underlying activity. In a Unix environment, in a Windows environment, I apologize, I'm not sure exactly whether the actual CMD command line actions are recorded one command at a time. I'm going to have to follow up with you specifically for that question. So thank you. That's a great question, and I will follow up with you offline to get that in more depth. A lot of great questions coming in. Let me get back to the list of questions. Okay, yeah, good question. Do you have an agentless approach as well, and what are the agent's resource utilization? Okay, two related questions, very good questions. Yeah, so far what we've described is the typical or the standard user observed architecture. I'm going to call up on the screen a little bit about alternative deployment scenarios. So what we've described is understanding agent-based deployment. Observe It also gives you the ability to deploy based on a gateway. And the concept of a gateway deployment is that you would deploy an agent on a gateway machine, route users via that gateway, and then the users via that gateway or jump server would then connect through to target servers or virtual machines where no agent is installed. So in that situation, you wouldn't have agents on the actual target machines. Okay, but you would still be able to record and audit everything that the user is doing going through that gateway. And this, by the way, is true. You can do this via terminal server gateway or via a Linux gateway. I want to point out that those two options, whether it be a gateway option or the standard agent-based option, are not mutually exclusive. So what our most popular deployment method actually is a hybrid deployment in which you use a gateway to get generic or global coverage of every server in your network, no matter what server it is, and route your remote users via that gateway. But also for specific sensitive production servers, such as where you're storing credit card data that requires PCI audits, you also deploy agents on those specific machines so that users, when those users that have direct login rights or direct login capabilities to those servers, you have additional detailed audit logging for those sessions as well, even if they didn't go through the gateway. Okay. Now, in terms of resource utilization, extremely low. When there's no user session, the resource utilization is 0 on both Unix and Windows. When a user session is open, the resource utilization is 1 to 2% CPU, extremely low, 1 to 2% CPU, and 10 meg of RAM. That is on Windows. On Unix, the number is significantly lower than that because there's less video capture. I don't recall the exact number, but it's even lower in a Unix environment. More questions still coming in. Okay, here's actually a related question. Will user logging slow down the user's performance on his PC since continuing logging takes place? And I can't emphasize this enough, that definitely not. The overhead that is involved is extremely, extremely small, has almost no effect whatsoever on the machine. From a user perspective, it is not felt whatsoever. And the answer is straightforward, no. That effect is not felt. Okay, going back to the questions, trying to see if there's additional questions. Okay. Yeah, there's a number of questions coming in about pricing as well. I don't want to get into pricing. I'm providing a little bit more of a technical overview here. I'm not the pricing guy, but what I can point out is that the pricing model, the way that the pricing model works, is that there is a fee for the central database for the central management server, and then a per agent deployment, a per agent license fee. It's a standard software fee. It's not a software as a service, if that is part of your question. So the pricing model is based on a management server fee plus a per agent fee as well. Okay. At this point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up. I see there's still a number of questions coming in, and I definitely still encourage you, if you have other questions, feel free to still type them in, either in this console or you can ping me offline. Oops. At brad@observit.com, and I will follow up with you wherever you with any questions, further detailed questions that you may have. Again, I really thank you all for spending this hour here with me, and I encourage you to explore further how to get a greater level of granular understanding of what users are doing straight from within your SIM platform using Observit's user activity monitoring platform. Have a great rest of the day, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're logging in from, and thanks a lot. Bye-bye.